think that, if I could give some objective advice to you, I think you guys are getting played, man. I think every time he does this, you guys overreact, and I say you guys, I mean the media in general. You overreact and you play right into his hands. I mean, ironically, CNN reported on him learning politics from the World Wrestling Federation in 2015, and now you're like, oh my God, he's inciting violence. I don't think any American, most Americans, excuse me, certainly some maybe, but most Americans out there believe that he's inciting violence from a WWF clip.
Right.
So I think here you are, and I've watched your, hold on a second, I've watched your segments, and you keep talking about this. There's tons of news out there. Let's talk about real issues.
Yeah. We've been told these are official presidential statements. Is the Twitter account of POTUS an official statement or not?
Well, I mean, I know that there's two accounts there. There's one that's unofficial, there's one that's official.
The official president of the United States account. So is this a presidential statement?
Listen, as I said to you, I would prefer the president not make some of these tweets. I've been critical on CNN as well too. I just think that this plays right. You guys are playing right into his hands. You overreact, and then he's able to use that politically. And I just think that you guys, I mean, you got to start reporting on news. This is not really news.
I hear you. I get it. I share your feelings sometimes. What's confusing is when the President of the United States focuses on this. I'll show you how many tweets he's put out that are media attacks. 94 of his tweets are attacks on media versus 29 on the military and what's happening with our veterans. So where's his focus?
Well, I think that's interesting, because if you look at the media coverage, and I didn't come here to defend the president, but you're asking these questions.
I'm asking your opinion.
And when
Where's
you look at,
his focus?
hold on a second, I'm going to tell you. When you look at your focus and the media's focus, it's all attacking the president. Way for a couple years, and you mentioned the 35%
But we're
that he
responding
had.
today to his attack on CNN.
Presidency.
We're responding to his attack of him punching CNN, Congressman.
I understand what you're saying. What I will tell you is that I can tell you definitely, without a doubt, there's a lot of focus on the VA. There are a lot of focus on veterans. There's a lot of focus on foreign policy. But you guys should cover that too.
And how is that evident? How would we know that? Because you're falling
into a trap.
Congressman, where would we see that?
I'm actually just giving you, objective advice. You're actually falling into a trap by covering tweets all the time. There's a lot of news out there. There's a lot of focus on health care, a lot of focus on veterans, a lot of focus in the South China Sea. There's a lot of news out there to cover.
So why isn't the president talking about that?
He is talking about it. I see him talking about it. We're working with the White House on different initiatives out there that aren't being covered necessarily.
Okay.
I'm just giving you advice. I think you're falling into a trap.
Thank you. I accept your career advice. But I'm curious, are you saying that we should begin now ignoring all the president's tweets? Because really, the vast majority of them are frivolous. As we've shown you with the numbers, you think that we should just start ignoring the president's tweets.
What I'd like for you to do, the next segment you have, is put the numbers up of your negative coverage of the president as well, too.
Congressman, that is a, forgive me, crazy suggestion. Why
is it a crazy suggestion?
Because we are covering
I've watched your segments. I've been sitting here watching your segments.
Congressman.
The last 3 ones are all about these tweets. You're not covering the news. Cover the news.
And how do we know?
You cover the tweets. You should do that. But cover the news too.
Good. How do we know when the presidential tweet is newsworthy?
You got, like I just said, your whole segments are all about this.
Yes. How do we know? Just give me the roadmap.
But cover the news.
How do we know when the president's tweet is newsworthy?
As I just said, you've covered his tweet. You covered it over and over and over again.
I haven't gotten your response
I'd love to talk about the news with you.
The reason that
I've already told you. I've been critical of the president.
Yes, and are you critical of this one?
Tweets.
Do you think this one was a mistake?
Of course. I don't think it makes sense to do that. But that's his decision to do that politically, and he will take either the successes or the consequences of making that politically. But I don't think that should make you do nothing but cover his tweet all day long. You got a lot of other things to cover.
I agree. We would love to be able to move on. We wish the president would talk about substance. We wish that the press briefings
Well, I thought we were going to come on here and talk about the South China Sea, about voter fraud. But here we are talking about the tweets, the whole segment. You're playing right into the political hands.
Basically, I wanted to get your opinion on whether or not you thought this was a mistake for the president and whether or not you think that Republican leadership should speak out against it. So answer that and we can move on to voter fraud.
I've already said I'm critical of it.
Do you think that Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell should say something? How about
I'm critical of it. I don't think it makes sense.
Has the leadership been vocal enough about that?
That's up to them to get on your show and talk about that.
Okay,
I'm not going to, say,
Okay, you're not going to give them advice. Got it. Let's talk about voter fraud. So you know that there are something like 27 states that do not want to comply with the White House requests for all of this personal information of voters, including Virginia. What's your response to the secretaries of state saying, no, we don't feel like turning over private information of people's Social Security numbers and addresses and the way they've voted in the past?
Well, I think there's two things here. Number one, I believe in states' rights, of course. If there are states, because obviously we control elections at the state level, and if there is legal information or private information they don't want to disclose via state laws, no problem. But what I saw, and actually it was in CNN's reporting on what the request was, and the request was public information that is available to anyone if they pay for the voter rolls. Like if I'm a candidate, I can pay for the voter rolls and get it here in Virginia as well too. I don't really see a problem with that because it's public information as long as the commission pays for it. But yes, if there is something that runs afoul of state laws, I support the states and not sending that in.
Here's what
But I didn't see. I mean, as I saw what was on the statement, it said public information.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's private information, but some of it is public, and the White House should be able to access it.
If it's available, what the statement said via CNN's story that I read was public information that doesn't run afoul of state laws. I don't have an issue with that. If it did, if it was private information, like you said, that ran against state laws, I would not support it, of course.
Got it. Here's why it's confusing. Let me just read to you what the Mississippi Secretary of State says about this request. Quote, they can go jump in the Gulf of Mexico, and Mississippi is a great state to launch from. Mississippi residents should celebrate Independence Day and our state's right to protect the privacy of our citizens by conducting our own electoral processes. I think the question, Congressman, that it brings up is why is the White House focused on trying to get the voting histories of Americans? What's that about? What could they be compiling this for?
Let me again agree with Mississippi in saying that they do have a duty to protect the privacy of their citizens and the integrity of their own elections that states run. Again, via your reporting, not yours personally, but CNN's, it says, from the request was public information that doesn't run against state law. It doesn't run afoul of state law.
But to what end? Why does the White? Just so that I'm clear, how does that help cut down on voter fraud? Why does the White House need that?
Well, you see that the folks that are on the commission are actually from the state level that I saw, and I don't see a problem with trying to figure out if there was problems. There are a lot of people out there who do believe that there is voter fraud.
Right,
so
but there's not widespread
I just don't see a big
fraud.
But you say that, but that's fine.
Because of the numbers. I'm just reporting to you the data.
You say that, but what's the problem in looking to it? Just like what's the problem in looking to Russian meddling in an election? I don't see a problem with that. I think it's important to do so.
Sure.
So,
I understand.
As long as
I'm just giving you the facts and the data.
As long as the states are able to, you say that, but there's studies that say that's not. But if there is. And I'm not arguing if there's widespread voter fraud or not.
But
all I'm saying is if a White House has the prerogative, if the White House has a prerogative to look into it and they look for public information that's not private, that doesn't run afoul of state law, I don't see a problem with it.